Hi, I'm Kat from Philadelphia. Please subscribe to my channel and give my story a like. This story began a long time ago. My grandparents, with whom I lived from a young age, always thought that I was an unusual child. As a little girl, I was always bringing home homeless animals found somewhere around dumpsters, and sometimes I could spend hours hugging and talking to trees. They're alive also, and they understand everything. At the same time, I was very shy and spent little time with my peers. I preferred taking long walks alone in nature or helping my grandmother around the house. Once we were making pumpkin pie together. She suddenly froze with a spoon in her hand and looked at me really closely. "Kate, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling okay?" she asked wonderingly. "I'm fine, Granny," I answered confidently. "You're not blinking at all," explained my frightened grandmother. I went up to the mirror, and in the reflection, I really saw slightly rounded fish-like eyes that were not blinking at all. The doctors diagnosed me with blinking deficiency. Nothing too serious, except for the effect that I now had on the people around me. My classmates started to violently mock me, and I moved to the very back desk and didn't communicate with anyone. One time, I had to go on stage and sing a song at a school concert. I was dying of fear, which made my eyes widen even more. But I didn't have a choice. Additional points were awarded for the performance, and I really needed them. While I was singing, a group of classmates in the back rows of the auditorium were loudly making fun of my fish eyes and calling me pop-eyed. And when the song ended, instead of applause, I heard a monstrous laugh. I just got lost. I was about to cry when one of my classmates, Steve, approached the guys and said in a cast-iron tone, "Don't you dare laugh at Kat or say bad things about her. Are you her daddy?" one of the jokesters replied. At that same moment, Steve jumped on him, and the guys began to beat each other black and blue. As a result, they were isolated in separate classes for a week as a punishment. I was shocked by Steve's actions, and at the end of the school day, I secretly made my way to his class and said, "Thanks, Steve. You not only protected me, but you also restored my faith in people." To which my new and only friend replied, he could not do otherwise, and that I'm the most unique girl in the whole school, smart and very cool. After that incident, we spent all our free time out together. Steve's parents often went on business trips, and he stayed at our place. The fact that I now had a best friend changed my life dramatically. I became much more confident, and under Steve's careful guidance, I learned to put my offenders in their place. Even my fish look had become more natural over time. Our friendship grew stronger every year, and one day my friend broke the news, which became a turning point in our relationship. His parents decided to move to another country because of work, and now Steve had to live with his aunt and finish high school at the best private school in the state. For us to stay together, my friend suggested that I apply for a scholarship. "You'll definitely get it," he said. "You're the most talented teenager I know." He was right. My application was approved, and in the new school year, we went to the same school again. I'll get ahead of myself and say that I was mentally not ready for the dramatic changes that suddenly happened to Steve. I got used to the image of a regular and sincere guy with a fluffy, full head of hair who always stands up for his friends. Instead, on the first day of school, I saw Mr. Fancy Pants, dressed in designer clothes, with smoothly combed in a fashionable way hair. Steve smelled of expensive cologne, and in his hands he was holding the latest iPhone, clearly to show it off. To my silent surprise, my friend replied that we are now studying with successful people, and that we need to fit in with the new circle of friends. And it wouldn't hurt me to work on myself too. I just laughed at this and decided not to pay too much attention to what was happening. In any case, Steve was still my friend. Further events unfolded unexpectedly and rapidly. After school, our new classmates approached us and invited Steve to spend the weekend together and play baseball. We usually meet in a private club for the elite. "Well, you do understand that there is no place for such slobs as this one," said one of Steve's new friends, and looked expressively in my direction. "It looks like she found her dress in the dumpster," added and loudly laughed the long-legged blonde who was standing a little further away. "And what about Steve, who used to be ready to beat everyone who tried to offend me? He took a step to the side, as if he was not with me, and looked down with a stupid smile on his face." After the weekend, Steve came to school with his arms around that same blonde and silently moved from our desk to sit with her. As I understood, she'd become his girlfriend. It was difficult for me to get over the fact that my friend had changed, and not for the better. But when he started to make fun of the young teacher, disrupt her classes, and put pens in her chair, I couldn't stand it anymore. Once when Steve was plotting another dirty trick, I went up to him and said, "Steve, you're acting like a total jerk. I don't recognize you at all." To which Steve popped his eyes out and stopped blinking, mocking me. And in a high, twangy voice, he said, "Our pop-eyed, broke wannabe decided to protect all the pathetic ones." For a long time, I couldn't believe what I'd heard. How could a person suddenly change beyond recognition? It's like it wasn't even him. Around the same time, we had a new guy join our class. His name was Michael, and every day he was coming to school in an expensive car with a personal driver, and all the girls were sitting at his feet. But imagine my surprise when on the first day he sat down at my desk and said, "Looks like you're the only normal person in this herd." We began to sit together not only in class, but also during school lunch. We talked a lot, and sometimes he was even giving me a ride home in his luxury car. Steve, who really wanted to be friends with Michael and started to suck up to him, was unnoticed by my new friend. Michael called him a pretentious slug. When Steve's long-legged girlfriend called me a slob once again, Michael decided to play a joke on her. He said that his dad is on the Forbes list and that his family had a villa in the Bahamas. And it was true. And then he asked the blonde to be his girlfriend. She, of course, left Steve, but was left with nothing herself. She was so pissed when she found out that the richest and coolest guy in her class had pranked her hard. Life at my new school normalized, and everything would be fine. But it turned out that my family had big financial problems. My grandpa lost his job, and in those few months, we had a huge mortgage debt. We could lose our house. Immersed in gray thoughts about the future, I was coming home from school one day, and I saw Steve in the company of his friends. They were writing nasty things on the walls of the educational building and calling the headmaster himself terrible names. When they saw me, the guy lifted their fists. "If you tell anyone that it was us, you're dead, pop-eyed." The next day, I was taken to the headmaster. He was furious and said that the surveillance footage clearly shows that I was at the crime scene and saw the offenders' faces. If I didn't give them names, I'd be expelled from school for joint participation. After this conversation, I saw Michael and told him that I had made the decision to leave the school. I won't tell the headmaster about Steve. He was my best friend, and I won't betray our friendship, no matter how he behaves. Michael looked at me with admiration but said nothing. And the next day I had a surprise twist waiting for me. I found out that Steve confessed to everything and was expelled from the school. But an even bigger surprise was waiting for me at home. My grandparents told me that some secret benefactor had covered our mortgage debt. And at that moment, I knew exactly who our savior was. It was Steve. As it turned out later, Michael told Steve about the fact that I had preferred expulsion from school to the betrayal of a friend, and Steve was so impressed by this that he decided to confess to the headmaster. And since his parents' business abroad went uphill, he covered all the debts of my family. "You were ready to sacrifice your future for me," Steve said when we met and almost cried. "And I really behaved like a total jerk all these months, and I'm sorry. You're my best friend, and paying off your debt is the least I'm willing to do for you." Now I'm gonna cry. "I'm so glad my old friend is back to the way he was," I answered. "Kat, you should take a closer look at Michael. He's a nice, good guy, and it looks like he wants to be your boyfriend." Steve winked at me, and I thought to myself, how lucky I am, both with my best friend and my future boyfriend.